Welcome to the Driven Moms Answering Adversity interview series, Stories of Success Through Setbacks from Mom Elevated. Together, we can shine a light on how normal challenges and struggles are, along with how we can overcome and rise above them. Today, we have Haley to share her story with us. I'm so excited to get started. So, Haley, if you don't mind, would you just tell us a little bit briefly about your story to get us started?
Sure. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and we started our family in Portland, Oregon. I was raised with a Catholic father and a Mormon or Latter-day Saint mom. That was interesting,
And I
having
was
both those dynamics. And I was very into the LDS faith, got baptized, went to Brigham Young University, where all the good LDS go to find their spouse. Found my spouse at Brigham Young University in Idaho. We got married when I was very young. I thought I was very young. I was 20, and I have a 20-year-old daughter, and there's no way she's ready to get married. And then we got married in the temple, like good Latter-day Saints are taught, and we started our family, and we ended up having 6 children. And homeschooling, home birthing, using herbs and natural healing, we raised them very maybe traditionally, maybe like people did 100 years ago with minimal technology, very hands-on, very faith-centered. And we moved to Missouri 10 years ago. And that's how I became acquainted with the Amish. And
That's so interesting. I was baptized Mormon in college, so I totally understand.
no,
Yeah, I was. And then my husband is Lutheran, so completely different spectrums. I can't even imagine what it was like with the LDS and then the Catholic side on your with your dad. That's crazy.
my birth mom was Lutheran, and my mom and dad divorced when I was little. So I was actually baptized Lutheran, and you were baptized Mormon. So that's funny.
That's so crazy. So what was it about? I mean, the Amish, I can feel how that would be similar to like a Mormon where you're just very holistic and very I can see how that would appeal. What really was like the clinching point when you're like, "No, this is great. I like this a lot. This is more along the lines of what I want." How did that transition
The
happen?
Amish.
Yeah.
What can I tell you how I met the Amish? Because growing
Absolutely.
up in Portland, there are no Amish
Yeah.
out there. And I had always heard about them, and I was fascinated by them. And I knew that a lot of LDS were fascinated by the Amish. So when we moved out here, I was looking for a really good source for cheap food because I had a big family and we had a really good source in Portland. So a woman that befriended me at church, she took me out to an Amish store one time. I didn't know they had stores. They have dry goods stores in pretty much every community has a dry goods store where they sell food at discount prices. So
Okay.
she took me out there and introduced me to the Amish, and then I wanted to go back. So I got my neighbor, who is also new to Missouri, and we loaded up my pickup truck with our kids and we drove back to the Amish store. And they did not have what we were looking for. We wanted mineral salt. The store did not carry mineral salt. So the owner of the store, Sarah, she's like, well, go down the street, take a first right, and then on the left, you can buy your salt. And so we went down the street, we took a first right on the dirt road, house on the left. It was just an Amish house, big Amish house, big garden. Pulled up there and we're like, I don't think this is a store. So we sat in the truck for a while, just watching the chickens run around and just looking because we were still new and absorbing all this new culture and this new country. And finally, I'm like, well, I'm going to go up to the door and see if she has any salt. So I went up and I knocked on the front door, and this Amish woman who was very, very thin and her gray hair was coming out of her white cap that was kind of falling off her head. And she was wearing a dress and she had an apron on it, and the apron had holes. And her little son kept kind of peeking out from behind her skirts, wondering who this stranger was at the door and what she wanted. And so I said, well, Sarah sent us here to get salt. She's like, yeah, I've got some salt. How much do you want? And so she went to somewhere in her house and she brought me out some salt and I paid for it. And I had no idea what was going on. And then got back in the pickup truck. You know, the kids were all watching, curious, because this is not Portland anymore. And then started the pickup truck, started to back out of the driveway, and a skinny guy his name was Enos. He runs out of the goat barn. He flags me down. Stop, stop. So we stopped, and my neighbor rolled down the window, and he's looking at my neighbor, and he asked if she owned the truck. She was not driving, she was the passenger. She's like, no. And I'm like, I own the truck. And he's like, ooh, very nice truck. We're looking for drivers. We pay really well. We pay 75 cents a mile. That sucks. Okay. For a diesel pickup truck. He's like, would you like to drive for us? And I'm just looking at him like, I don't even know what's happening. He's like, do you have a pen and paper? And I said, no. And so he went into his house barefoot, threadbare, came back with a pen and paper, and he wrote down his name, Enos Gingrich, and he wrote down his address. And then he handed me the piece of paper. And then he's like, nice to meet you. And then he ran back to his goat barn. And I'm like, what? Heck. So on Sunday, went to church. There was the guy who was the driver for the Amish. And I said, what is this? And he's like, oh, they want you to drive. I said, well, where's the phone number? And he's like, well, they don't have a phone number. I'm like, then what am I supposed to do with this? He said, what they do is they have a phone shack, and you can't call in, but they can call out. And he said, well, if you want to drive for them, make up a flyer, make some tear tabs, put it in their little bed and dent stores or their little dry goods stores. And so I did that. I charged more than 75 cents a mile, but that was the start of my driving. I put a flyer up, and the Amish, they like to collect phone numbers. The fastest way to get your phone number passed around is to give it to an Amish guy, because they want to have at their beck and call anytime they need a driver. They want to have a list to call so they can get a driver. So that's how I got started. They asked me. I wasn't looking for it.
That is so crazy. Obviously, it was meant to be.
It was. No, it really was. Yeah.
That's so neat. Oh my gosh. That's a really cool story, honestly. I didn't, because I've never been to an Amish community, so I don't know how that works either. I would have been in the same boat. I'd be like, I don't know, should I get out? What are we doing? But that is so amazing. How long have you been driving for them then?
I
Um,
drove for about 7 years. Last year I lived in Utah, and now I've done driving, at least until I feel like I need to drive again. I don't have a big van anymore. My friend took over
nice.
for
Okay.
me. So I'm writing about them and speaking about them now instead.
I love that. That's a great way to transition. I love that. Okay, so within all of that, what do you think, what adversity have you answered and how? Like, what is the biggest challenge that you think happened during all of that? Or even transitioning out now that you're speaking about them and doing that, what is the biggest adversity you hit during that and how did you answer it?
Well, the biggest adversity, so it goes back to my upbringing. So got married when I was 20, had 6 children. Before we moved here, my husband wasn't working, and we were living in my parents' basement with 6 kids. I was homeschooling. I'm not going to go work. I'm raising my children. And he just wasn't working, and we were at our wits' end. And we were actually, I'm not going into the whole story, but we were given a house. We were gifted a house in Missouri. Okay, somebody crowd fundraised for a house. And that's how we ended up moving to Missouri, because we had to have a change. We couldn't live like that. And then the Amish driving opportunity came up, and I figured it was a good opportunity to have one-on-one time with my children and take them on trips. So
Mhm.
I was able to take them to Wisconsin, and give them those experiences and still homeschool. And my older kids were old enough that my oldest daughter, I paid her while I was gone. I'm like, here's your list, here's your money. We're going to Wisconsin or whatever. Anyway, our marriage was over before we came. Okay. So then we came here, and within 2 years, I had bought a farm out in the Amish community, and we had our house in town. And so we divorced, and he kept the house and I got the farm. And that was the biggest challenge, especially being raised, as you know, because you joined the Mormon church. You know how important family is, and staying married, and those values that I've talked about already. You understand all those. So that was difficult. And the Amish, their judgment was so harsh. They don't divorce under
Right.
any circumstances ever, murder, rape, nothing. They do not divorce. So that was my biggest challenge, I would say.
Yeah. How did you answer that then? How did you be like, this is what's best for right now and I can handle whatever is coming at me, because I need to get through this. This is the path that I need to walk.
Well, so if I can tell a little Amish story, I was driving a minister in a neighboring community, the community that got me started. And the Amish gossip because they have their little Amish newspapers, but they don't have TV, they don't have phones, they don't have radio. They have their community, and unless they leave their community and hire a driver, like that's their world. So they just eat up anything they can get a hold of.
That makes sense.
So so there was another driver who drove just a few times, but she's the gossip and LDS as well. But anyway, she told them some of my life. And so I was driving this minister and he's like, oh, so I hear you're going through a divorce. I'm like, how'd you hear that? He's like, oh, the Amish Telegraph.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. I said, okay. And so he starts nosing in my business and he's like, you know, Haley, all you have to do is forgive. I've been married for I don't know how many years. He has 10 kids. They've been
Wow.
married for decades. He's like, you just have to forgive. I said, well, I appreciate that, but it takes two. And then I just tried to like, I don't understand.
Right. That's just a whole different foreign concept. So then because I imagine if they gossip that much, I imagine you would hear about it frequently. How did you just do that and deflect frequently, or did they just finally move on to a different topic? Like, how did that progress?
I'm happy to talk openly, but that guy, he isn't my favorite person.
Yeah,
So, so I have people I like better,
sure.
and I'm happy to talk somewhat openly about it with them. Because, like I said, in Amish land, they believe that divorce gets you to hell,
Mhm.
and they believe that if you divorce and you remarry, then that is committing adultery because
Okay.
your spouse is not dead. So I remarried, right? So I'm committing adultery in their world, and that is like, oops, straight ticket to hell. And I said, well, in our world, it's better sometimes to separate if there wasn't abuse, but if there's abuse or murder, especially, it's better. And it's not something they can really wrap their mind around. They're pretty hardcore in their beliefs.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I'm
but I'm
glad.
happy to share.
Yeah, no, and that's probably, I mean, for them it's probably fascinating just to be able to talk to somebody who is living that. Um, and then how did you meet your new spouse?
Um, yeah. Okay, so remember the free house? So
Yes.
so we were under investigation by Child Protective Services in Oregon because we homeschool and home birth, and it freaked actually members of my ward, my church congregation, for those who are not understand Mormon lingo, my ward out. So they called Child Protective Services on us. And so I was like flipping out. So I discovered the LDS Freedom Forum. So this was 15 years ago, right? And on there I met a guy and he was active in the forum and he was the one, he said, well, I feel inspired to crowd fundraise for a house for a family in need. And we were a family in need. We were being persecuted by members of our church. We were being investigated by Child Protective Services. My husband had no job, right? We were living in my parents' basement. It was overwhelming. And so I'm like, me, pick me. So he did. Anyway, I ended up marrying his son. So his, we both ended, his son was in a relationship. We both ended up getting divorced and then we married each other. That's what happened. Is that not crazy?
That is wild. But again, obviously that was meant to be. That's so crazy. Oh, I love that story, actually. That's fantastic. What are the odds? That's one of those stories that you're like, really? That
Yeah,
happened?
I never saw that coming. He didn't know, oh, she's going to be my future sister. And I'm like, no.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That is great. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Okay, so then on a similar vein, but also different, what do you think it is then now that I mean, you've kind of been an entrepreneur this whole time and not sort of out of necessity, but also sort of just happened. What do you think it is about entrepreneurs that makes us continue on through challenges without giving up when times are tough, even if we're dealing with personal struggles as well? Because that's a whole different ballgame, but
Well, my nature is to be uncomfortable. Well, it's not to be uncomfortable, but I've always been a person who wants to challenge myself. And so to be successful, we need to be uncomfortable because everything we want is outside our comfort zone. And I don't know where that came from inside of me, but um you're going to edit, right? Are you going to edit? Oh,
I
sure
don't
you
usually, but I love this conversation. It's so real and
understand.
raw.
Hey, say that again because my brain just went boop.
No, perfect. I said I love this
So
conversation because it's so real and raw. So what do you think it is about entrepreneurs that makes us continue on through challenges when without giving up and just, you know, going back to a 9 to 5 or, since you were already homeschooling, that's probably part of the drive of, no, I'm going to keep going. But I mean, I don't know, a lot of people are just like, no, I can't do this.
yeah, so getting out of your comfort zone is important. And then I believe that either we are growing or we are like we're either becoming more alive or we're becoming more dead. We're growing or we're I don't know what the opposite word for growing is, but so the problem in my marriage was that I wanted to grow and improve and learn and become a better person. And my husband was like, I'm good right here. So so that's part of that. And I want to set the example. I have a mantra that I say to myself because I do have 6 children and it is a few, not as many as the Amish, but the mantra that I say to myself every day is I am the person that I want my children to be. So am I behaving how I would want my children to behave? You know, am I setting the example I would want my children to follow for their life? Or am I taking the easy way? That's what keeps me going in all honesty is that they're watching me.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. And that's so true. I ask myself that frequently as well, just because it is one of those things that I don't know, as you watch their reactions to things, I think it shows you kind of a reflection of what you are doing and what you're saying and showing. And it's powerful to be able to say, oh, no, 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 I don't like that. We're going to shift and change that. And life is beautiful in the sense that you can control that. You can change at any point in time and make that. My sister said something, she was just visiting this weekend and she said, it's just that 30 seconds of insane courage is all it takes to make some change in your life. And I think that's so true and it's beautiful. How old are your kids? Do you mind me asking?
Yes. So I had my first baby was born in the year 2000, and then my last baby was born in 2012.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've
Okay.
got
That's
yeah, so 25 to well 13 this year.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so that's probably a great reflection, like seeing your 25-year-old and being like, okay. Because I feel like my oldest, I definitely see the progression of my parenting as my kids got, as I go to my youngest child, and I'm like, okay, I can see where I may have misstepped with my oldest. Right?
No,
It's crazy.
I
I
feel
don't
so bad. They're the
know.
experimental children, and I feel so bad. And right now she's in a hate mom phase. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry.
I changed so many things though.
Yeah.
Uh, that's so true. So what overall takeaway or lesson would you like other mompreneurs to be able to use specifically from your experience?
Okay. So what I will say, have you guys heard the concept of like when you go through a change, it's like you go through surgery, you're sick,
I have.
right? I mean, I just had surgery, so I can say that. I had surgery because of my 6 kids. I wasn't sick, but my body had fallen apart, right? You're sick or you're falling apart. So we can use my example. My body had fallen apart and I needed it to be put back together. So I went and I had surgery. I was on the table, blood was everywhere. There were knives, and I don't know what there was, but it looked like a death happened, right? When I was having this surgery to recover and to be made whole again. And then, so a death happens, and then after surgery, you're whole again and you're better than you were before. So that's kind of the transformation that I went through when I was a mom. And you know how Mormons are taught, you stay at home, you're obedient, this is your box that you fit in. And then we moved to Missouri, and I'm like, I'm not staying in that box anymore. I'm a person, I have things I want to explore, I want to grow and learn. And so I did, and went through the divorce was part of that change, and that was part of my surgery. And now on the other side, I'm a completely different person and I'm whole. And I like to think I'm better than I was. But you have to be willing, like you said, that 30 seconds, you just make the choice, you go through it, and then you just, and then it's too late. You can't get off that operating table when your guts are hanging out. Like you just keep going, and it's such a blessing to go
Yeah.
through.
Do you think that I love that analogy actually? And then the recovery mode is like you're healing and you're moving through and you're getting to that next level of who you are. That's a great analogy. I'm gonna use that.
What can I share? I love Amish proverbs. I hoard them. So it's often through life's greatest struggles that we learn our most important lessons. And it's just been a learning journey. And that was an Amish proverb anyway. They have a lot of sayings.
Yeah, yes. No, I love those and I love words. So any that you want to share, I'm happy to hear. If you I have this back here that says freedom and then it has a little saying underneath that you can't read on here, but I surround myself with words and sayings and their words have power and I love them. So thank you for sharing.
Can I share another one?
Yes,
Couple more.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So this is not an Amish proverb, it's by Abraham Maslow, but he said one can choose to go back towards safety or forward toward growth. Growth must be chosen again and again, and fear must be overcome again and again. Is that
Oh, I love that one. I love that one a lot because that's so a lot of what I think like your surgery analogy, people are afraid of what is to come or if they'll be able to survive it or get through it. And it's like, oh man, but that 30 seconds, that's all it takes. And then you can. It's amazing what you can get through and what you can power through if you just take that first step. Oh, I love that. And get through the fear of it. So powerful. Is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with, or is there anything that you want to share that you have upcoming? My last question is usually what is the best way for others to find you if they'd like to work with you, learn more about you, just soak up your space?
no, I was looking because you have eagles on the back of the wall.
Yes.
It's
Yes. I love the whole feather into birds, into butterflies, and dandelion fluff. And yes, I love all those things.
you are so resonating with me. So can I share? It's not, my husband was like, Googling, he's like, that's not a true story. I said, I know, but it's a really beautiful little analogy. Can I share one more analogy? And it has to do with the eagle, because I'm like you, freedom and transformation and growth. And okay, but this is not a true story. Okay. But it's an analogy. Okay, so the eagle is our national bird, right? For America, and it symbolizes strength and courage and freedom, right? And this is where we get to the fake part. Okay, well, this is the real part. So eagles can fly high. They can fly 15,000 feet in the air. And we can use that. The eagles are strong, right? So the story goes, the eagles, when they hit about 40, like my age, I'm sure you're much younger, they have a choice. They can make a transformation or they can stay where they're at and then die a slow death. So some eagles use their courage and they make a transformation because their beak gets worn out, their claws get dull, and they need to transform. So they fly to the top of the highest mountain and they undergo this weeks long transformation where they beat their beak on a rock and they break it off so that it will regrow a new beak. And then with their new beak, they remove their talons so that they can regrow talons and they pull out their feathers. And they're not eating a whole lot. They're just up there completely alone going through this transformation. And then after they have this transformation, they have renewed strength and renewed ability, and they can continue on, another couple of decades of life. And that's kind of like we have midlife crisis, right? I'm in my 40s. I was in my 40s when all this happened. I was going through a midlife crisis and a transformation. And I was doing things I never thought I would do. I never thought I'd be an author. I never liked to public speak. The first podcast I did, I was like trying to hide from the camera. Like this was not me. So we have a choice. We can change or we can stay the same. And there's another quote. I love quotes like you do. But when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, we change. Have you heard that one? You like
Yes.
that one?
Love that
Okay.
one.
I think
Yes.
that applies a lot with moms who are transforming
Yes.
themselves. But
Or yes, trying to find something, pursue their own passions while still maintaining their connections. And yes, I love that one. Absolutely. Oh man, so
Okay.
good. Thank you for sharing all of those. I needed that today, I think, for sure.
So I can leave you one more Amish proverb and then tell you where to find me. I guess
Okay,
if that's,
perfect.
and this is one of my favorite ones. And I really try because I have taught my children that they each have a mission in this life. We are put on this earth for a purpose that only we can fulfill, right? We can serve others in a unique way that can improve their life. So I really drill that into my children. So the Amish have a proverb and it goes, be life long or short, its completeness depends on what it was lived for.
Oh, see, I love stuff like that. It hits you so deep because it's so true and it's so powerful. And I feel like they've refined it to such a level that I just, yeah. Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah, they're good.
I'm gonna have to remember that one for my kids.
Yep, they have a mission, right? They have a purpose. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
absolutely.
And helping them guide towards their mission is, I feel like, our purpose, part of our
I
purpose.
agree. I agree with you. Yeah,
That's
that's our
fantastic.
mom job.
Yes,
One
right?
of them. Yeah.
Please let us know where to find
Yeah.
you. I will have everything in the description as well, but in case they're just listening, that way they can still find you.
I'm on haleystraw.com.
Okay.
Everything's there. My books are there. And yeah,
How
all things
many books do
Amish.
you have?
I have two. I'm working on the third. I have lots more to write because the Amish, they're full of life. So I have lots of stories.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm gonna have to go check them out myself as well. That's perfect. Do you happen to have any of them with you where we can like showcase them?
Oh, I have them behind me and I have them on Amazon.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
But
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing part of your story. I know that it was probably just the tip of the iceberg, but I like to tell everybody your story is inspirational and your willingness to be open about it is very much appreciated and needed, especially in this time. I feel like the more that we share, the more connected we can feel, and that's something I feel like has been missing quite a bit these days. So I know I love it. I hope that everybody else does as well. And for those of you out there facing your own adversity, know that you're not alone. That's why we do what we do here. This is the whole purpose of sharing our stories and how we get through things and all the words that support us along the way. When you need an extra hand or mind for brainstorming during your mompreneur journey, we would love to work with you through the Mom Elevated Society, which now has Gift Yourself Grace included in it, which is our quarterly program. And it's a reflection program. Super fun. I love it. You'll find monthly check ins and goal setting and assessing, and so much more for both your business and your mom life. And until next time, keep shooting for the stars. Thank you.